that's being set up and developing, how do you think the more permanent Board of Trade will help and ensure China sticks to the purchasing agreement and provides better access for our U.S. producers? How do you see that playing out?
Well, remember, the Chinese economy is a command economy. They have something that passes as a private sector, but it's really beholden to the government and the party. In the U.S., we try to have as much of a free market economy, capitalist economy as we can. And so those economies don't fit together very well. So the Board of Trade is a mechanism, a government-to-government mechanism, where we can engage on terms that are mutually acceptable with the Chinese. If they're going to have a managed economy, then they can manage importing from the U.S.
Yes.
We can identify those goods that we really think are important for us to sell to them, and we can identify goods that we're willing to buy from them as well.
That is how America puts a manipulated economy on notice. Representative Randy Feenstra just dropped the ultimate ironclad receipts right on Trade Ambassador Greer's desk, turning a routine hearing into a scathing indictment. There is no room for diplomatic double talk here. The core issue is clear. Foreign nations are weaponizing tariffs and state intervention as political tools to choke out America's billion-dollar export industry. In this interrogation, Feenstra stands up for the livelihoods of American farmers, forcing Ambassador Greer to establish a red line against trade retaliation. Stay until the end, because from the direct ultimatum sent to Mexico to the moment Greer exposes Beijing's command economy, this is a masterclass in how to handle adversaries who refuse to play by free market rules. Hit subscribe now, because when foreign governments treat U.S. agriculture like a political punching bag, you need to see these receipts.
Thank you, Chairman Smith, and thank you, Ranking Member Neal, for holding this hearing today. Ambassador Greer, I just want to applaud you. I want to say thank you for what you're doing for the American farmer. I represent one of the largest ag districts in the country. When it comes to Iowa, in my district, we lead in corn, soybeans, pork, eggs, biofuels, and there's a lot of trade that we've been doing in those capacities. When I talk to the farming community, they don't want a handout. They just want open markets, and that's why this is so, so important. I want to just talk a little bit about the pork producers. They're facing anti-dumping and countervailing duties cases that are more political in nature than purely economic. You've just come back from Mexico, where a lot of these issues are somewhat prevalent. Can you talk about what your office is doing to ensure U.S. pork producers are not caught up in the crossfire of retaliation?
Yes, as you mentioned, I just came back from Mexico. I raised this specific issue. My sense is and again, there has been no retaliation thus far, which is very important to note. And I don't think we can have a deal with Mexico if we have retaliatory issues like that. I think the Mexicans understand.
Feenstra doesn't waste time with cheap gotcha questions. He enters the raw data of Iowa's agricultural dominance into the record as a primary receipt. He identifies exactly how pork producers are being besieged by tariffs driven by political agendas rather than economic reality. The hammer he's wielding is the threat of Mexican retaliation. Feenstra makes it undeniable. This is about protecting the heartland's massive agricultural hubs, people who refuse handouts and only demand a level playing field. Greer's response lands like a final judgment. We cannot have a deal with Mexico if these retaliatory issues persist.
And I don't think we can have a deal with Mexico if we have retaliatory issues like that. I think the Mexicans understand that too.
Yeah, well, thank you. And then our soybean producers, China is so important, and they are steadily purchasing their commitments, and I'm so grateful for that also. How do the U.S.-China Board of Trade that's being set up and developing, how do you think the more permanent Board of Trade will help and ensure China sticks to the purchasing agreement and provides better access for our U.S. producers? How do you see that playing out?
Well, remember, the Chinese economy is a command economy. They have something that passes as a private sector, but it's really beholden to the government and the party. In the U.S., we try to have as much of a free market economy, capitalist economy as we can. And so those economies don't fit together very well. So the Board of Trade is a mechanism, a government-to-government mechanism, where we can engage on terms that are mutually acceptable with the Chinese. If they're going to have a managed economy, then they can manage importing from the U.S.
Yes.
We can identify those goods that we really think are important for us to sell to them, and we can identify goods that we're willing to buy from them as well, mostly in non-sensitive sectors. There's a lot of non-sensitive, mutually beneficial trade we can do with the Chinese, but it has to have some predictability to it.
This is how you neutralize a bully, by exposing that foreign trade partners are being forced to answer for their own protectionist schemes. Watch how Greer flips the script. as the focus shifts from Mexico's political games to Beijing's economic structure. He draws a sharp line between America's free market system and China's calculated, managed economy. This is a high-stakes collision of two ideologies. Washington is now pushing a nation under total party control to finally play fair. Greer's answer is essentially a trap for Beijing. If they insist on a managed economy, then they can manage to keep their promises and import from the U.S., moving past the usual diplomatic jargon. Greer strips away the veil to reveal the brutal truth of doing business with a command economy.
I'd love to open more markets there and continue to see them buy our goods. Ambassador Greer, India remains probably one of the most restrictive markets when it comes to agriculture, and I'm excited to see the progress that the two parties are working with a U.S.-India trade agreement, trade framework. When I look at my state, the country, we do a lot with distillers grain called DDGs. We do a lot with soybean meal. This could be a great opportunity for export markets and even ethanol into India. Can you talk about where we're at and what we can do to encourage India in having more of our ag products being represented over there?
Yes, so you'll know that we have a joint framework agreement with India that we signed that sets out the general terms of our agreement. The Indian trade negotiators are in town this week, so we've been talking this week about these issues, including about these specific commodities you talked about, DDGs, et cetera. India is a tough nut to crack. They've protected their agricultural markets for a very long time. As part of this deal, they're going to want to protect a lot of that still. There are things, though, where I think we can find mutual agreement. DDGs is a good example of this.
Yep, good. And then finally, I just want to talk about ethanol. We have a great opportunity, domestic fuel for the U.S. and then abroad, and we see more and more countries around the world using ethanol. Do you see any opportunity for other countries? We did a great job with UK in having U.S. ethanol being exported there. Do you see other opportunities that we can export more ethanol to other countries like Asia and so forth?
Sure. We do have a variety of countries that have agreed to reduce their tariffs on ethanol for U.S. imports. You mentioned the UK agreement where we opened up a billion-liter market. We're talking to the Brazilians about this as well. The trade relationship is a little more fraught right now, but we're talking to them about ethanol. I think there are things we can do mutually with the Brazilians to reopen that market. Yep. So there's a lot going on, a lot we've achieved, but there's more to do.
Yep. Well, Ambassador Greer, thank you for answering my questions, and thank you for all that you're doing.
But Feenstra isn't done. He brings out his next leverage point, India's closed markets and the fracturing trade relationship with Brazil. When foreign governments shield their agriculture for decades and cling to unfair advantages, the mask of free trade shatters. This is exactly what compels powerful lawmakers to step up and smash those barriers. This isn't about subsidies. It's about the fact that open markets are the ultimate disinfectant. When Greer calls India a tough nut to crack, he is reasserting the rule of law against a protectionist mindset that treats trade as a one-way street. The principle is simple. Accountability dies in the shadows of murky tariffs created behind closed doors. Whether it's pork in Mexico, soybeans in China, or ethanol in Brazil, Washington is now fighting to tear down these walls, rescue domestic farmers, and silence the political noise. What do you think? Drop a comment below. Should foreign powers be allowed to arbitrarily slap retaliatory taxes on U.S. producers? Does Ambassador Greer's performance give you confidence in a fair trade system? Let's name the names of those who put farmers' livelihoods over backroom deals. The battle to preserve a billion-dollar agricultural empire won't end in this hearing room. The moment an Iowa representative forces top diplomats to confront Mexico's tariff weapon or China's manipulation is the moment the facade of empty promises is ripped away. Ultimately, transparency is the most powerful tool we have. The mandate is non-negotiable. No concessions for those who use political gimmicks to strangle free trade. Whether the goal is saving exports of pork, soybeans, or biofuels, Washington must leverage the full weight of the state to crush protectionist strongholds. We cannot afford to stand by and take the hit. What's your take? Leave a comment below. Do you believe foreign nations are exploiting American openness to dictate their own rules? Is Feenstra's relentless questioning enough to make global partners back down? Share your thoughts, hit subscribe, and join us as we continue to expose the unfair deals made behind the scenes.
A simple question can sometimes bring down an entire empire. Before the U.S. House Oversight Committee, Richard Kahn, former chief accountant and current co-executor of Jeffrey Epstein's estate, came prepared with the perfect defense. For hours, Khan endlessly repeated the mantra of an outsider employee. I just managed the books. I wasn't involved in his personal life. I don't know who those women were. But the committee's counsels didn't ask about Epstein's personal life. They asked about the cash flow. When cornered about a series of shady transactions, Khan resorted to his final line of defense. I wasn't familiar with every single worker. I didn't know what they did. The committee representative looked straight at Khan and uttered 9 words that permanently defined the entire hearing. You're the accountant. I'm not. You should know the answer. You cannot manage a $600 million empire, move tens of millions of dollars a year, set up 30 shell companies, receive a $25 million inheritance, and then stand before Congress claiming you don't know where the money went. Today, we are going to dissect this deposition transcript. This is not just a story about a deviant billionaire. It is a dossier exposing how the financial system was weaponized to cover up a criminal enterprise and the terrifying silence of law enforcement agencies. Khan's first layer of defense was the corporate architecture. Epstein owned between 20 to 30 legal entities, LLCs, and trusts. Khan argued that fragmenting assets, one company holds the plane, another holds the real estate, is standard risk management for the ultra-wealthy. The theory is flawless until the committee opened the general ledgers. The problem surfaced at LSJ LLC, a company created solely to operate the island of Little St. James. The books recorded LSJ LLC making a series of direct payments to women. Instead of freezing the accounts or reporting suspicious activity, Khan's accounting department made adjusting journal entries. They scrubbed these expenses from the company's books, moved them to Epstein's personal account, and declared them to the IRS as gifts. In the underworld, criminals don't issue invoices for illegal services. By restructuring illicit expenses into gifts, the accounting system executed a classic money laundering move, legitimizing dark money into standard civil transactions. Khan's excuse, I didn't see any invoices noting payment for sex, becomes meaningless. Complicity doesn't lie in whether Khan directly participated in the crimes. It lies in the stroke of a pen that wiped the crime scene clean on the balance sheet. The second point that shattered Khan's naivete lies in the stacks of cash. Around 2013, JP Morgan Chase terminated its services with Epstein after sniffing out legal risks. Stripped of credit cards, the empire was forced to use cash on a massive scale. The office safe maintained a constant $20,000 to $30,000. Khan himself delivered $6,000 in cash to Epstein every 3 weeks. But data from the Virgin Islands lawsuit delivered the fatal blow. Khan's accounting partner, Harry Beller, signed checks to withdraw $800,000 in cash in just 18 months. Notably, a repetitive withdrawal pattern emerged with the Cation exact figure of $9,800. Under the Bank Secrecy Act, BSA, any cash transaction of $10,000 or more mandates banks to automatically file a currency transaction report, CTR, with the U.S. Treasury. Intentionally withdrawing just under the $10,000 threshold is legally defined as structuring, a federal crime designed to evade anti-money laundering radar. When questioned, you are an accounting expert. Do you know what the cash withdrawal reporting threshold is? Khan replied, I don't know. A Wall Street financial expert, a former Big Four auditor, claiming ignorance of the most basic anti-money laundering law. By asserting I don't know, Khan built a legal buffer to avoid accomplice liability. However, this evasion is the clearest confirmation. The accounting department knew exactly that this cash served illicit purposes, and they knew exactly how to bend the system to hide it. If the money is circumstantial evidence, the internal emails, Exhibits 4, 5, and D, are bullets fired straight at Richard Khan personally. The outsider accountant shell completely collapsed. Exhibit 5, an email dated November 27, 2013, sent by Khan himself to Epstein's assistant. I left him a message, Bank of America representative, as if I was J.E. Jeffrey Epstein. In the U.S. financial system, calling a bank and impersonating someone else's identity to conduct business constitutes wire fraud. The fact that Khan posed as a convicted sex offender to handle bank transactions proves he was not a passive employee. Khan was a stand-in, an active link, maintaining the financial lifeblood when Epstein was blacklisted by banks. Exhibit D. An email thread involving immigration fraud. A young woman wrote directly to Khan requesting documents for a Swiss visa. I need a sponsorship letter. A full scholarship, a fake one. Obviously. Khan's reaction was not a refusal or a legal warning. He forwarded the email to Epstein for instructions. If okay, then it appears I should be using HBRK as sponsor. The fact that a request to forge documents was openly discussed proves that fabricating backgrounds and creating legal covers for women moving across borders was standard operating procedure. Khan even admitted to writing an embellished recommendation letter with fabricated details to help two women in the ring get married. The "I didn't know" mantra was crushed by the very documents bearing Khan's signature. The darkest part of the transcript doesn't point the finger at the criminals, but straight at law enforcement. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested. That same day, the FBI executed an emergency search warrant at Epstein's $77 million Manhattan mansion. The ultimate target was the massive safe, the storage site for blackmail, hard drives, fake passports, and the black book detailing the itineraries of the elite. Under standard operational procedure, the entire scene and all evidence must be strictly sealed. But according to Khan's testimony, an unbelievable scenario unfolded that night. FBI agents stormed the mansion, broke the doors, breached the safe, took some documents, and retreated. They left the house wide open and left crucial items right inside the broken safe. Epstein's estate manager discovered this. He took it upon himself to pack all the evidence forgotten by the FBI into 2 suitcases and sent them straight to the private apartment of Chief Accountant Richard Khan. The 2 suitcases sat at Khan's home for days until the FBI remembered and called to ask for them back. Khan carried the suitcases back to the FBI and casually received a receipt. From a legal perspective, this is the total collapse of the chain of custody. Federal evidence fell into the hands of the suspect's employee and remained outside police supervision for days. Independent investigators proposed a theory, intentionally creating buffer time in a case involving the world's most powerful figures. Immediately confiscating sensitive hard drives creates uncontrollable leak risks. By intentionally forgetting documents, the FBI created a 48 to 72-hour window where this evidence remained outside the official sealed system. While the 2 suitcases sat at the home of Khan, the man holding the ring's financial secrets, any document could have been removed or destroyed without anyone knowing. The FBI signing a receipt for the recovered suitcases was merely a clumsy legitimization of a tampered crime scene. Khan swore to Congress, "I never opened them." But the oath of a man who impersonated identities and forged documents holds zero credibility. Whatever was truly inside those 2 suitcases has likely evaporated forever. Days before dying in his jail cell under highly suspicious circumstances, Epstein hurriedly amended his will, transferring his entire $600 million fortune into a secret trust named the 1953 Trust. Shockingly, Richard Khan, the man who always insisted their relationship was strictly professional, was appointed co-executor of the estate and granted an inheritance of up to $25 million. A $3 million personal loan Khan owed Epstein was also automatically forgiven. When questioned why an outsider accountant would receive an amount equal to Epstein's closest partners, Khan rationalized estate management fees under New York law are typically 2%, equivalent to $12 million. Since the will only paid him a $250,000 year salary, Khan deduced the $25 million was Epstein's way of prepaying him to handle 10 years of legal nightmares. In the underworld, $25 million is not an accounting fee. It is the cost of buying absolute silence. Epstein needed a cleaner who knew the ins and outs of 30 shell companies, knew where the $9,800 cash flows went, and knew the true contents of the 2 suitcases. Khan constantly used the Victim Compensation Fund, which dispersed $121 million as a moral shield. But the cruel truth lies in the carve-out clauses. To receive the money, victims were forced to sign a release agreement, waiving their right to sue a specific list of individuals. Khan confirmed to the committee 4 names on this protected list: attorney Alan Dershowitz, Prince Andrew, billionaire Leon Black, and former J.P. Morgan executive Jess Staley. The compensation fund wasn't just a place to dispense justice. At its core, it was a legal laundering system using Epstein's own dirty money to establish a BIP shield, permanently severing the threat of escalating litigation against powerful clients. Richard Kahn's deposition is an X-ray of white-collar crime's anatomy. The Epstein empire was lubricated by a force of high-level intellectuals, accountants and lawyers willing to fragment assets into 30 shell companies, magically turn prostitution payments into gifts, bypass anti-money laundering laws with $9,800 withdrawals, and forge documents when necessary. Kahn's "I'm just an accountant, I didn't know" narrative was crushed by the very emails and journal entries his own hands created. You're the accountant, you should know the answer. Because money never lies. Even more severe is the compromise of law enforcement. The FBI forgetting the most sensitive evidence, letting it fall into the hands of the suspect's employee, is a stain that cannot be washed away. It sounds the alarm that the legal system may have been bent into a damage control mechanism to protect the apex of the power pyramid. Epstein is dead, but the people who operated his machine, the financial institutions that turned a blind eye, and the law enforcement loopholes remain completely intact. The $25 million in the 99953 trust executed its mission flawlessly, buying eternal silence, ensuring that the numbers on the ledger will forever replace the truth. What are your thoughts on Richard Kahn's defense and the FBI's inexplicable actions? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to join us in our next in-depth investigative dossiers. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.